Hello everybody, this is the video that I was talking about on Discord that I would make today instead of streaming. So if you were hoping to see the Minecraft stream this evening, then that's not going to happen. Unfortunately, we'll be back with that. Maybe we'll do Minecraft next week so they don't really miss a Minecraft week. We just kind of push the schedule ahead a little bit, and then after that they don't starve together, la la. All that good stuff. Anyway, so for those who didn't know, which is probably a lot of you, today there was going to be a conversation at my dad's house about him possibly moving to a care home, because if you've seen my most recent video, I think, on my dad, back then he had just been taken off the road while he was driving at night against traffic and appearing very confused to the officers who pulled him over. And in the hospital they concluded that he has dementia, and they were already looking to put him in a care home because dementia doesn't get any better and he was going to deteriorate, and eventually people with dementia will get into all sorts of trouble, and it could be just troublesome, and it could also be very dangerous in the sense of setting stuff on fire because they're just not aware of things happening. And indeed, recently we've had an increase in incidents with him. He's been caught walking around outside in a daze more often. There has been a pot left on the stove that started steaming and smoking because the stove was left on and he's just not aware of that. And apparently, I heard today during the conversation at work, there were actually several stovetops that were still turned on. And also, when my brother was there the other day, my dad was sleeping on his couch. And then my dad woke up and he was like, "Oh, I don't think this is my apartment. I'm going to go to the elevator, which is on the same floor, and then I'll walk to my apartment from the elevator because I know how to do that. And in other words, I'll know exactly which apartment I'm supposed to be at." Then he came back in his own apartment, of course. He's like, yeah, I guess this is my apartment. So he's really confused about where he is. And that happens more often than not. And he always has to make sure to keep things in a certain spot. There are a couple of notes hanging around his house written by his girlfriend, like, oh, you need to drink this once a day, and you need to do that once a day. And there's like a note to the care staff as well at the table. So things have been getting worse with him. And today we're going to have a conversation with somebody who judges people's states to see if they need to be put in a home or not, or if we need to go through the courts for this or not, because there has been, like I said, an increase in these instances where he's confused and doing things that are dangerous, and he really can't stay there anymore because, like, for instance, the furnace thing, somebody finally noticed it, but it could have continued like that, and there could have been a short-circuiting, and there could have been fire. And he doesn't seem to think that any of this is an issue, because I was there with this woman this morning with my dad there, of course, and she was trying to tell him, like, maybe it's a good idea to choose a place for you to move now rather than wait until you have no more options, because now you can still choose where you want to go, which home you want to go to, you can get used to it. You can really take your time to sell in, get like a new bunch of furniture that'll fit there, because one of the issues that he had was that these rooms in these care homes are smaller than the apartment he has now, which is true, they're very small. But that's mostly because these care homes tend to have the rooms where people can sleep, and also a very large living room where people can go and hang out during the day. So the room doesn't have to be super huge. You just need your bed there and a couple of things, because it's kind of like your bedroom, and then the rest of the home is like a living room and kitchen space and all these other things, with a whole bunch of other people there and staff and stuff like that. So she was trying to nudge him a little bit, like, oh, it might be a good idea to go look at that now, because now you still have influence, you can still see what it looks like and choose and stuff like that. But my dad is very stubborn. He's always been very stubborn. And he's just of the opinion that all the things that went wrong with him recently are things that happen with everybody every once in a while, and these things he's either forgotten or doesn't really think it's all that important, and blaming stuff on other people. Like, he claims that somebody who comes and helps him out every day with like the home chores and stuff like that, that she put the pot on the stove and then left it on, which I don't think so. I mean, it's possible. I'd say there's like a 10% chance that that's what happened, but it's more likely that he did it and forgot that he did it, and then the thing started to smoke and kind of burn, and that's usually one of the signs that things are not going well. And whenever she asked him a question about whether he was willing to go, he would start talking about other people whom had worse cases of dementia or Alzheimer's or something. Like he'd start talking about the neighbor that moved in some time ago, and they moved him into a home afterwards because he was also starting to lose the plot a little bit. And then 2 months later he died, and he was talking about another neighbor of his girlfriend's who was apparently going to the store 12 times a day because he kept forgetting that he had already been. In other words, other people's issues are far worse than mine. I'm still able to do things. I always keep my keys in my left pocket, and I got my wallet in my right pocket. Of course, for the camera slipped, but you know what I mean. And he kept like just going back to things that weren't really relating to him, and the fact that these rooms were smaller than what he was used to, and his couch wouldn't fit, and the TV wouldn't fit, and these other things wouldn't fit, and his bed wouldn't fit, everything wouldn't fit. So that's kind of the excuse. And every once in a while, I think the actual issue would come up because he would talk about his mother, who had also been put in an institution like that because she was also starting to lose the plot. And he would say like, oh yeah, she'd ask me what the code for the door was because they would have these doors with codes on it, and I would tell her, oh, it's 888. And then she'd walk over to the door and she'd be like, what was the code again? Like 3-4 seconds after being told what the code was and stuff like that. And he really didn't like that whole thing with his mother being in that home. We never got to see her in there as kids because my dad wanted to shield us from that. So he was like, oh, that's so terrible. I don't want that for myself. But yeah, he thinks that everything is still fine. And with the few people that come to his place, like every other day to check on his whether he came out of bed on time or just on the general state of the apartment, the cleaning and stuff like that, to see if he's still wearing proper clothing. Speaking of his clothing, he didn't have his shoes on properly. He had these shoes with Velcro straps, and one of the shoes did not have the Velcro straps actually applied. He had stains on his pants that also looked kind of like he hadn't washed them in a while, and I'm pretty sure he had his shirt on backwards, so in that department he's also not doing too well. The few times that people show up to do that he thinks is enough, and he's also of the opinion that if he wants more help that he can just pay for more services, which the person from that organization pointed out correctly that they don't do that at night. And the main thing is that in these homes you'll have 24/7 people around to help you in case there's something wrong, in case you need some medicine, in case there's something like health-wise, if you're lost and stuff like that. And mostly just now is a good time to choose because, first of all, there is a room available now in the location where he had already gone to look with his girlfriend, and there is a room there. I went there yesterday. And yes, it's not a big room, but they have a huge living room on the outside as well. And of course, it's not fun to have to move there, but eventually he's going to have to because it's just not safe where he is right now. And yeah, now would be a good time to choose because say that we just leave him there for now until he really can't take care of himself anymore, where he's like actually even has to admit to himself, if he's then still even capable of admitting to himself that things are wrong. There probably won't be a room available for another half a year or more, and then he has to somehow bridge that time, and that could lead to disastrous consequences. Also, I think for as long as he's able to think clearly about these things, like he has those clear moments, like most people have some type of dementia or Alzheimer's, they're not always lost. Like maybe 80% of the time they're perfectly capable of having a conversation, but it's the rest of the time where things get very dangerous. And that's sort of the reason why it's too dangerous for him to live alone, and that 20% is eventually going to get much bigger. Eventually it's going to be 40%, and then it's going to be 50, and then 60, and then 70. But as long as he still has that clear moment when somebody comes and asks him if he wants to go move to a home now, I don't think he's going to agree because he just doesn't want to go. Unless his girlfriend tells him that it's a good idea. So after the conversation was over with him, I went into the hallway with this woman who was there to ask the questions, to do the interview. And she was like, you know what, it's not like he's really saying no, but he's also not saying yes. He's kind of just keeping like everything away from him, doesn't want to make the decision, has a huge focus on how much space he would be losing. And if the girlfriend has more of an influence over him, then we really want to talk to her first and then see if she can get him to voluntarily go to a room in a care home. And if that's not possible, then we'll have to go through the judge because he really is endangering himself. She didn't say that last part, but that's what we're seeing as the friends and family, so to speak, that he's doing very dangerous things, even though he doesn't want to admit it. So that is the current status. I had a conversation as well with the people at the care home where I went to look yesterday, and they were like, okay, we're gonna talk about if we can keep this room empty for now for him, or what the policy is going to be for that. I already told him that's going to take like another 2 weeks before we get anything decided, and if he continues to be stubborn, then that room is probably going to get used for somebody else because it's going to take much longer. I don't know how long it would take for a judge to say, you know what, it is necessary that he goes to a home because currently he's endangering himself and he's endangering his neighbors as well with currently forgetting things that might cause fires and things like that. And so then we'll have to find another room, which hopefully will be available by the time that the judge makes their call. So yeah, it's really annoying, and of course I understand, like I'm pretty sure everybody else understands, that it's a really big step and it's not a good thing to have to go to a care home, because it's just you lose a lot of your freedom pretty much. In particular, somebody who is like in the later stages of dementia, they will not be allowed to leave the building because they might wander around and hurt themselves. So then it's even more of a limiting of freedom. And of course it's a huge step because, you know, once you end up in a care home at a certain age, you're not going to go anywhere else. That's the last place you're going to live. That's the final stop basically in your lifetime. And it's kind of like admitting that the end is coming. And I think a lot of people will have issues with that. On top of that, of course, we have the issue with his girlfriend still, and that's also an issue. She called my brother the other day because the thing is with her as well, she tells us that she wants him to go to a care home, but to him, she says, oh, I want to keep you in your apartment as long as possible, and you're in control, and if you don't want to go, you should just stay, and all that sort of thing. So during the conversation as well, I mentioned, like, because the person from that other organization was like, oh, but I hear that your girlfriend is also concerned about you. And my dad was like, oh, I don't know anything about that. So I was like, well, actually, she's telling us, my brother and me, like, hey, I think we should put him in a care home because I'm so tired and I can't take it anymore. And it would be better for him and stuff like that. So she's saying that to us. But to him, she's talking a whole different story about how she wants to keep him there as much as possible and that he's his own boss and blah, 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 like I just said. So I'm curious to see what that conversation is going to be like. But anyway, so she had called my brother the other day, or left a message or something along those lines saying, okay, if he's going to go move into a place, because we're all in agreement that he should go there, you guys have to sell his stuff, because he won't be able to take it with him, and he's got all sorts of debt, and it's all in your hands now. Like, he's got debt somewhere, you guys sell stuff so that we can pay off this debt or something. And initially she said that he had debt with the bank, but later that turned into he has debts with her. So we're not sure what type of debts these are. There is this whole thing that went on with the company that leased him his car back in the day, and it was her idea to lease a car. She leased a car for herself, and of course, since she's taking care of business, she also made sure that he got a leased car with the same company, even though he was already not really capable of driving anymore. So he constantly had damages on the car, had a flat tire because he hit the curb so much and stuff like that. And so he had quite a lot of extra payments that he had to make, because all these lease cars kept getting damaged, and after a while the lease company is not going to keep replacing things and they're going to start charging you extra every month. And so she took care of that, even though it was also her initiative to get the lease car in the first place. And so she considers that as him having a debt with her, when it was her idea to get the lease car in the first place. knowing that he wasn't a great driver as it was, because even when he hadn't met her yet, he was already quite dangerous behind the wheel. I've sat beside him a few times, particularly at night, because his vision was already failing, but at night I think he also had night blindness on top of that. And even when it was daytime, he would swerve a lot, and you could just tell he was very insecure behind the wheel because he wasn't seeing things properly, wasn't hearing things properly. We spent some time as well during one of the car trips with his left indicator still being on for a very long time, and he just wasn't aware of these things. So this is the person that she got a lease car for, and whom she now claims has debt with her that needs to be settled, among other things, by us selling his stuff. And my brother is like, we're not going to do any of that. We didn't cause this debt. That the whole debt is her idea. And we're going to see what he can take with him to this new room in a care home, and everything else we're just going to bring to a thrifting store or something, because we're not going to do anything with selling stuff online. And if he wants to sell stuff, then he can do that himself, or she can do it, because she tends to take care of everything anyway. So I'm like of the same opinion. I'm not going to take on any sort of debt, because I know that it's not even official debt. It's just something that she came up with. And if you know anything about, or if you've seen any previous videos of mine about this whole situation, you'll know that she's very manipulative, and so we're not even sure if this debt is real or not, or she's just trying to find ways to get to his money. Just like she also arranged for somebody to take care of his finances, and this is a bookkeeper whom she apparently is friends with, so we don't even know where his papers are, and we don't know where to find this bookkeeper because we don't have any information on her, so that's great. So that's the type of taking care of things that she does, and that's also the type of debt that he probably has, so we're like not really trying to involve ourselves with that. She keeps talking about how she wants to go to Greece eventually, initially just on holiday, but she's always been printing out holiday homes for sale in different countries, among which Spain as well, and we suspect that as soon as he is in a care home, she might come visit him once or twice, and then she's going to go on holiday one day, and then she's going to go on holiday again after a while, and then after a couple months she's just not going to come back. I think she's just trying to get rid of him somehow, because she thinks he's annoying. He calls her all the time. He books taxis to take him over to her house all the time. Like, he really wants to be with her. And it's kind of sad, because she's showing signs that she's not really interested, but she's just playing, probably hoping to get some money out of him or something, and then book it to Greece, basically. So that is the story of my dad. We're going to learn more in the next couple of weeks, because we're going to have to figure out what's going to happen next, if he's going to go voluntarily or not, based on the conversation that he might have with her. And then, if not, we'll have to go through the courts. I don't know how that is going to go. They already sent me some documentation, like, because if you go through the courts to take somebody into a care home to protect them against themselves, somebody has to sign that, and it's usually the close relatives that have to do that. And since he does have kids, that means we're looking at this paperwork right now. Camera cut out there for a second because my thing is starting to fill up my memory. So I'm going to say goodbye for now. We're going to see next 2 weeks what happens. In any case, make sure to have a nice weekend. I will see you next week for Stardew Valley, and bye-bye for now.